Okay, so currently my ship has a lot of nodes going on here. Luckily, I'm not going to do a lot of rigging on this. I just want to do one main piece of rigging, and that is primarily to the ship's body itself. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this up here where we can see it. I'm going to go back to my OpenGL view because this may start getting a little taxing. And just notice it doesn't look quite as good as OpenGL. That's okay. When you're rendering it, it's going to look like this. So what I mainly need is I need a peg for my ship. So I'm going to say Control P for my peg. And I need one more thing. I need to be able to squash and stretch this body of the ship. Now it'll also need to squash and stretch the door and the porthole, probably the highlight, but not necessarily the feet. Right? I want it to be able to squash and stretch that. So the tool we're going to use for this is actually named in a way that is going to be a little confusing, particularly if you've been paying attention to some of the 3D videos. So what I'm looking for here is a constraint. Okay, and there's multiple types of constraints, but the easiest to understand is going to be this 2-point constraint. I'm going to drag this out here, and so a 2-point constraint does kind of two things. I'm going to unplug this. This is going to be my master ship control here, right? I'm going to go and put my pivot point where I want that, and so that way when I'm animating the ship, which I probably want that more like here, that's the thing I'm going to be animating. So what a 2-point constraint does is I plug into here, and it gives me the ability, if you look up here at the top, to plug in a left peg, a right peg, and a switch. Don't worry about the switch right now. But right now I need a left peg and a right peg. So I'm going to select this and hit Control P, and we'll call this, I'm going to name it so it's easier. We'll call this top P, and I'm going to hit Control P again, and we will call this one bottom P. And so now I have these two, and they're just two more pegs again. And I want to put bottom P down here at the very bottom of the ship's fuselage, and top P up here at the top. And so what this is going to try to do is it's going to try to warp this ship while still keeping these two points as respective controls. Right? So if I move this top point, the bottom peg is going to hold the bottom of the ship in place, right? And vice versa, if I go move that bottom peg, I can do this, right? So it just allows me to move and sort of warp this object from 2 points. Now it's not necessarily a deformer because I can't really rotate it and get like a warp in the same way that like the bones or the spline curve could. Did too far. All this is really going to do is let us kind of squash and stretch this object. But that's all I really need to do, right? Because that's going to give us a pretty neat look for animating this. Now this 2-point constraint can be plugged into anything else I want to constrain. It's already constraining my shadow, right? Because that's coming out of there. I would like it to deform the door. I don't really want it to deform the ramp. I would like it to deform the porthole and probably the highlight. So there's the porthole and there's the highlight. So let's go ahead and plug in that constraint to those two things as well. Porthole, highlight. And so now you'll see as I move this top peg, it takes it a minute to update, I'm sort of squashing and stretching the whole ship. And then this main ship peg up here, I'm going to plug into the top of both of these because I still want to be able to move the entire ship. Now, I'm also going to plug this one into these other things that I would like to move. So like the ramp and the flaps. Flap. As it is right now, I don't have plans on animating the flaps or the ramp with a peg. What I do probably plan on doing is animating this door shutting, but I'll probably do that with additional drawings. Right? And so that brings us, so now we have the entire ship can be moved around with this single peg, and I can animate this squash and stretch with this. Right? You can see that a little bit a little bit better here. But I did want to notice that like when I move forward a single frame, my ship is turning. So we'll get to this more later, but I made that porthole earlier and I made 2 drawings for it. And this is going to seem a little scary because I did this on several things, right? I made multiple drawings for all of these. I'm actually going to delete that second drawing. So I'm going to highlight all of those and just hit delete. And so now I only have this first drawing. And I'm going to minimize all the way up to ship here. And so that's my ship's first drawing. I'm going to go all the way out to the end of my animation and hit F5. And so now my ship is just that first drawing all the way across. Now, I know your thoughts may be like, Greg, why did you do that? We spent all that work on the porthole and the door and everything. Well, if I click on the porthole and I go to library, expand this down where you can see it, you'll see my original drawing there, the one that we're currently looking at. But what I want you to recognize, this is the drawing substitution panel. That other drawing I did is still there. I can actually switch to drawing 2 anytime I want to. And you'll notice that when I do that, it inserts that drawing. And so now I can animate this ship turning at any given point that I want to. Which means if I wanted to go in here and change the door to door 2 and the ramp to ramp 2, and I'll have to do the flaps as well, flaps to flap 2. Now I have the entire ship from the side, and I can still animate that from this side. And this is actually the side where I really need to be able to do that animation, right? This is where it's going to take off from. One last thing I wanted to show you, I'm going to actually undo all of that I just did, because I do want, for this angle, I do want it to be from this angle. One last thing I wanted to show you before I did that is that, well, a couple of things. One, this ship is currently, if I go to my perspective view, it's not necessarily in the right spot. It's like right here next to my alien. So I do want to go ahead in my layer properties and enable 3D and go ahead and move my ship back here into the background and try to make it part of the scene a little bit. So this looks, there we go. I may end up moving this piece of ground here to work with that a little bit better. There we go. And so I'm going to put my bananas over here on the ground somewhere as well. And I think with that, we're going to go ahead and wrap up this video. And I think we're getting really close to being ready to start animating.